Together. All right, so they introduced me earlier. I'm Christine. I know, Sean, you know me, but you know what I love about World Financial Group is the fact that we come from so many different backgrounds. And I love how they introduced everybody today. It's like you got Kathy from real estate, you have some stay-at-home moms, you got me coming from a more sports athletic background, you have people who come from IT, and a few that actually come from finance. It's incredible. And what I love about this system, though, is that it doesn't matter what your background is, you can win here. And what I love is you'll see a couple commonalities with people, and I mean that facetiously, but you're gonna see a lot of commonalities, is that even though we have very, very diverse backgrounds, very different, we all are trying to look for something extra in our life. There's this next level that we've been looking for, and we've come to WFG to kind of bridge that gap. And I think it really attracts some of the most selfless, hardworking, resilient people in the world. And so as you guys are going to classes, you're listening in on general training or a specific class, or just in the hosting, I want you to pay attention to that, because you're going to learn a bunch of different information. And it's going to be so exciting to share that information with people. But really the main thing is that people just came here. It didn't matter what they were doing before, because there was that next level in their life and what they wanted to go to. And that was it for me. I love WFG. I love it. I love it. I love it. Here's the main thing, is because it gave me options in the time when I felt like I didn't. So I have a long story, but my long story short is going to be the fact that I started in this business part-time. I think I've told you this before, Sean. You know, I was here for 4 years part-time. And what I mean by part-time was basically referring people, giving some names and numbers. I wasn't really active and consistently showing up to meetings. I just wasn't in a position in my life where I could. I was literally substitute teaching, high school basketball coach, had club coaching. So games were on weekends, practices were on weekends, a bunch of stuff that was going on. But WFG was still here for me, even though it was on a part-time basis. The other thing is I made pretty good income. And for me, extra $500 a month was awesome. And that's what I was looking for, because it helped me pay down debt. It helped me start to build savings. Then I finally started to make extra $1,000 a month. Some months I got to $2,000. I know it doesn't sound like big, huge money, but what does that really do for someone? There are people who make six figures, multiple six figures, that aren't in a position to start saving $10,000, $12,000 a year. Not at all. And what ended up happening for me, what WFG did for me, is that my mom passed 4 years into this business. And I don't know if you guys have had these experiences where you just feel like, I have nothing left in me. You know, I just don't feel like working. I don't feel like doing a bunch of stuff. You know, and most of us just have to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and get to work anyway. Like, I have to go back to work. I got to go back to school. I have to do this. Even more when things are dire, like this pandemic. Like, people are willing to get to work, even if it was, you know, it can have a real issue with your health. But what WFG did for me, and why I love it so much, is not just because I was able to pay down debt, build savings, but at that point in my life where I felt like, God, I don't even know if I have it in me to do anything, I didn't have to just pull myself up by my bootstraps and force my way forward. I was able to grieve, take time off, and I didn't have to work for about 1.5 years. And that changed everything for me. And I said, wow, that's really what money does, is it gives you some options. And I had the option to take time for me, spend more time with my family, you know, travel a little bit. And then that's when the light bulb went off, you guys. And I was like, oh, I get it. WFG teaches a lot about products and services and what you can do with insurance and college planning and retirement. But no, what it really is designed to do, why I believe this business is here, is because it now creates options for people, so that if they are beat up upon life, or good things happen, you have a baby, you get married, all this stuff, that you have some more options to not have to go back to work if you don't feel like it, or work as you so choose. And so that's what it did for me, and I love it. And so, you know, after that almost 2-year break, I came back and started running through it. And the best thing I did was I started to master the system. So I would encourage you guys, as you go through classes, you know, learn that first realm. As you get to a different stage in your business, in your life, go through these classes again, revisit it. It's a real commitment to becoming a master of this system, which is going to be everything. So let's hop into it. I will go into my PowerPoint.
Buenas tardes.
All right. Hold on a sec. All right. I don't know why it likes to get stuck sometimes. Let me go back a couple steps. All right. Wrong direction on me. All right. Sorry about that. I think when I pause too long, it does not like that. I'm gonna re-share. So step 3, it's important for you guys to know, feel free to interact with me, whether that's via chat or you can just talk to me, of course, but where this falls in the system. So the more you understand that this business is a complete system, the easier it will become. So part of that is this business format system has 6 steps, and these are the 6 steps that are listed. The key here is to start to master these, but what you see on the right, it says the rapid, relentless repetition of these 6 steps, you know, in recruiting steps is what's going to build an agency, an organization, in a true business. Because what's the definition of a business? My definition is I don't have to be there. I don't have to be there the entire time, right? And it starts to create these mini distribution outlets. So each step, we'll have a class, make sure to go through that, but I wanted you guys to see where we fall is step 3, which is the presentation, all right, which has to do with the BPM, which stands for Business Presentation Meeting, or the corporate overview. And so I want to get into what does that really mean? What are you guys' understandings of step 3? Anybody want to share? I know Lucia's like I told you earlier, we're not going to talk. But what about you, Sean? What's your understanding of step 3 as far as you know so far?
Well, I know that the Mo zone is, you know, it means momentum, and it's there to kind of just build the environment and create the excitement for our recruits and for ourselves. And then the BPM itself is an opportunity for us to resell the dream to each other and continue to encourage each other to keep, you know, pushing and just resell that dream. That's what my understanding is.
I love that. And it's true. It is reselling the dream. And I'm going to go into why. So within these 6 steps, we have something that's called the 8 speed filters. And these 8 speed filters are what's listed below, right? So you have this sign up process. And this really happens in someone's first 1 to 2 days. For a lot of us in this virtual world. So I'm gonna give you 2 sides to our business, this new virtual world and kind of this brick and mortar. I don't know what it's gonna look like when we go back to that, but the first thing is when you invite someone, you know, the key is, and that's virtual or not, speak more primarily to virtual, is do they wanna talk right after? You know, so we should pre-frame them. So when I call to invite someone to the corporate overview or the business presentation meeting, don't use acronyms, right? Because that's so weird. The acronym culture, it just kind of sounds cultish. You always want to make sure that you are using language that's familiar with other people. So business presentation meeting, corporate overview, right, are great ones to really articulate what it is that they'll be listening to. Now, as soon as I invite, I let them know, you know, as soon as it's over, it's only going to be anywhere from maybe 35 to 45 minutes, but I'm going to call you right after to get some quick feedback from you of what most resonated and see if we can set up a definitive time to talk after. So they know it's coming. So that's kind of our stay after the corporate overview. When we were in brick and mortar, it was literally people who wanted to stay and talk. Why? That's an investment of time, isn't it? How do most of us show our commitment? Through time and money. So that first filter. So this is how you don't get caught up in, this is what they said, this is who they are, this is their background, this is all that. No, we're running a business here. So we're running a system. I don't care necessarily what that person told me, where they are in their life, all these different things. It's all about, do they actually stay and want to talk after? Great sign. Great sign. So that means, hey, they're willing to invest some time with me. 2, pick up some information. So we don't have a physical kit, but I do follow up and make sure, hey, check out my website, right? Or the WFG website. So Because people who are interested, they continue to invest time. Are we going to read and look into something? I want to also filter that research that people are naturally going to want to do into something credible, which is going to be the WFG websites, the Transamerica Financial Advisors websites, any third-party rating company, all of that stuff. We want to filter that information to them because, hey, if they're excited, if they're ready, they want information. So we want to provide that. Number 3 is committing to a follow-up interview. Who actually sets the date, that like, hey, I want to actually sit down with you. And the thing is, you want to do that within 24 to 48 hours. While stuff is fresh in their mind. This is why it's not like a ploy or anything like that. It's just when you're in a certain state, excited, sad, whatever, it becomes a ongoing thought and a focus, more importantly. And you start to make some definitive decisions. When people come to our corporate overview, they start thinking about dreams they might not have thought of in a long time. They start to see some incomes like, wow, that would allow me to retire my parents, maybe buy that home, send my kids to college, maybe, quit this second job I'm working, whatever it might be. But then they start thinking about possibilities and real belief in things that have been exciting. And so they're like, all right, this makes sense. So while they're in that state, before they get back in the real world where things start draining them down again, then we want to get with them while that stuff is fresh, where they're in that state of imagination and hope and belief. And then, once we're sitting down with them, the 4th filter is that they do the interview and they do their AMA, which stands for Associate Membership Agreement, and get started. Now, the rest of these filters is what we call like our fast start process. All right. And so you want to complete that within your first week. What we're seeing with some of our leaders in this virtual world is what used to take people a week to do. They're doing this in 3 or 4 days because they're going, hey, we talked today. Let me get back with you tomorrow. And you're meeting with people within 3 to 4 days because we're just hopping on Zoom. And it's becoming really time efficient, but also still effective at the same time. So key things is that you want to meet with their spouse or their partner. They're such a center of influence in their life. It doesn't matter if they make their own financial decisions, have their own business. It's so important. It's a respect that in that household that we're including them at least in the conversation. Because if Sean is going to be out late at night or constantly on Zooms and, doing all this stuff, that person who he's sharing a household with, or you, Lucia, that you're sharing a household with, should know what to expect. And what are going to be the days? Is it going to be 7 days a week? Or why don't we choose these 2 days as part of your business plan? And that's what we're creating. What's Lucia and Sean's schedule going to be? And then who are the people that love us the most, or who know the most people who can help us build a network? I don't know if you guys have ever heard, but that phrase, your network is your net worth, right? It's so true. Most people in business have just built a network over a period of time and years, and to have this constant referral basis. And this is what we get to begin to build from the ground floor, right from the beginning. And we want to do that with the person that you trust and you love the most, right? And then we also want to build your FNA, which stands for Financial Needs Analysis. It's just so important that if I'm going to talk to someone about why it's important to save, to have a plan for these goals, I have to practice what I preach, and I should be going through that process myself. So we want to make sure that you and your spouse, if you are married, have gone through that financial needs analysis so you can see what that roadmap really looks like. How do we start to map out retiring in the next 20 years? How much money do you have to put away? What rate of return does it need to average over that period of time? And then from there, you get matched up with your field trainer. So, you come on board, starting to build this business plan, you do your financial analysis. Now you get matched up with a certified field trainer who's going to teach you and train you how to do this business. Here's the big thing. You guys, this is so taken for granted. There isn't any industry. If you go to Merrill Lynch, if you go to New York Life, there isn't any company that is just like, yeah, we're going to teach you from the ground up. You might not have a market. You might not have rich, wealthy friends. You might not have ever been in business before, but we're going to match you with our most successful person in business. And they're going to teach you everything they know, from how to talk to people on the phone, how to follow up, how to process information, process that. That's just, you usually just get thrown into the fire. Hey, Go get licensed, go figure it out on your own. But here we literally stair step you through to say, hey, this is what I've done to be successful, and these are your next steps. And then registering for our next big event. And obviously when we figure out the whole Corona COVID environment, we'll know exactly what our next big events are. But we are starting to create virtual ones. So there will be like a summer sizzler, I'm sure, that's going to pop up that we want to make sure to do. Now, why is this so important? Because if I'm looking at my business as a business, when someone comes in, they might have so many things they say to me. But I don't know if you guys have ever, heard the phrase, I believe it when I see it kind of thing. This is what allows us to see and not just buy into the language and any of that of what someone says, because people can disappoint us, not intentionally. It's just life is life and people are people, right? And we understand human nature. But this is how I figure out who to work with. Who got through the filters, number one? Who's getting through them fast? That just shows me, that's where the rubber meets the road of someone who is not just says they're motivated, they are, and they're putting the action behind it. Any questions on that part of the system, you guys?
Good, Christine. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. All right, good. So I know it might seem rudimentary because you kind of gone through the steps itself, but that's really where the rubber meets the road in running this business effectively. So the purpose of the BPM, Sean, you said this. There's 3 purposes. And if you guys are taking notes, go ahead and write this down. You don't want to lose sight of this. The number one reason for the BPM is to resell the dream to existing teammates, not to new guests and this, and that. The number one reason for the BPM is to resell the dream to existing teammates. Why? Because how easy is it to get they would say, don't get your hopes up too high. Well, why not? Why can't we hope? Obama ran a whole campaign on hope, right? But sometimes we get our hopes up when we do this, and there are things that happen around this that start to deflate us quite a bit, bringing us down and tempering our expectations and our belief, really. So as soon as you make a decision to do that, that's our most important fuel in our business. As that person who's like, I'm gonna do this with you, I'm buying in. And so just imagine if you were driving a car and it started to get on E, right? And it's just going down, we're at half a tank, a quarter of a tank is going down. Could you imagine if you didn't put any more gas in it? Doesn't matter how nice of a car it is. You can be driving a Lamborghini, but if you don't have fuel to move that car, it won't move. The BPM is our fuel to say, you know what? I know people are like, God, everything is negative. There's no jobs out there. There's no income. There are no resources. It's so much stuff. There's a lot of negativity. Even when we didn't have a pandemic going on, there was a lot going on for people to deal with. And sometimes you just need an infusion of hope and belief, but that's practical to know you can really do something and do something well. The second part is teach existing teammates how to sell the dream. Because we're not trying to go like we're selling a shiny car, like, at a dealership or something like that. But effectively, this is what this business did for me. How to tell your story in the sense of, this is how I stair-stepped this. This was my path. And how do you ask great, engaging questions of other people to know what moves them? Right? What motivates me might not motivate Lucia, right, or Sean, or any of that. But teaching people the skill set of, how do I sell the dream? And more importantly, sell that person their own dream and why they can go achieve everything they need to. And then the third, and it's literally in this order, is to sell the dream to new prospects. Is to say, hey, we're gonna, first and foremost, our commitment is to the people who are on board with us. And then we want to take those people and go and find our new teammates and business partners with us. So MoZone, that stands for Momentum Zone. Because energy is everything. And that changes a new person's state. So when we're in physical locations, when we used to ask for feedback of what people enjoyed the most, they were like, the people. Just being able to talk to someone who had a commonality or shared experiences or shared dreams in the future. They say some of your best friends are the people that you should be talking about your future with. Sometimes some of our friends are the people we're talking about in the past, like what happened behind us. But how exciting is it to talk about what's in front of you and what's going on? Now, we don't quite have that in the virtual world, But we do have it on agent trainings where we can talk a little bit via chat and say, hey, you're looking good. I hope things are going great. But this is why our individual team meetings are incredible and an incremental part in this new system where we have these team check-in meetings, right? So that we can start to build that state again. So as you see down here, it says this is a key filter in the recruiting process. How guest responds to this, high energy or positive environment is everything. That's why I'm always upbeat when I'm talking to people. That's why I'm always talking about where we're going. I genuinely feel that way, but I want people to know that too, and not focused on what hasn't happened or what's not happening. So when we do have agent trainings, BPMs now all virtual, you want to monitor your people that you have on there, old and new. Like, who are the people who are logging on who are new to the BPM to hear it for the first time? I want to know how many. I want to know how many on my team, right? I also want to know how many people who are currently on my team have logged on. So literally my phone is going off over here because people are texting me who's on, which one of their teammates are on, because what you're going to realize, I want you guys to look at the bottom phrase down here. It says the average number of people in the BPM, meaning your existing associates, is usually the average number of sales that your team will write. And this has been true the entire time I've been in this business since I have been tracking. So I know if I have 10 people coming to meetings, I'm probably going to have like 10 new applications that month, written in that month. It's incredible how accurate that is, because your butts and seats is what we call them, drive every other number of your business. That shows you how many people are hot right now, really engaged, wanting to get out, helping families and talking to people. So if nothing else, there's a lot of numbers that can be misleading, but butts and seats and how many people are a part of your business and how many new people are coming and seeing your business is everything. So imagine if you had a Subway. Could you imagine if your Subway, you didn't even know how many sandwiches you guys sold? You didn't even know how many people came in the door that day. How successful do you think your Subway is going to be, or your restaurant, if you don't even know what your foot traffic is? Like, hey, we had a great day and we made a bunch of money. The main thing is you're going, okay, well, how many people came in for us to have this type of revenue? Or you're saying, oh, how many, what type of entrees are they buying the most? What's the most popular? If I have a restaurant and I can't answer some of those basic questions, like what food sells the most, I won't know what to keep in stock or to advertise more, or how many people are coming in to know what's going to consistently bring that revenue, my restaurant wouldn't be very successful. So what I want to challenge you guys to do is to look at this business in the same way. Don't just leave it up to the air to see, like, oh, we'll just see what hits the wall this month. No, as soon as I see exactly how many business partners, my teammates I have on regularly, I know exactly how many applications. Based on those applications, I know what the average, client of ours tends to save on a monthly basis. So I can completely estimate how much money will be made on the team and how to get distributed. But I'll also have a great projection of the next month based on all of the new people that are coming and seeing the BPM for the first time. So I track every little thing possible in this business to make sure I'm running this business as a real business as I would anything else, right? Because I know my numbers, all right? So do any of you guys track your business that closely yet? I know you're fairly new-ish. Oh, I see Lauren is with us. Hello, hello. How are you?
Sorry, we had some issues getting into the room, but thank you.
No problem. Welcome. Glad to have you. We're getting into the meat of it all, but the main thing I was just saying is we got to run business as a business, and how important the overall system is. And, it was Nikki who actually taught me this when we were talking about just, okay, how to make more money, this and this. And you think about sales and transactions. And she reminded me that I'm not self-employed anymore, right? I ran my own filmmaking business. My sister ran a basketball training business. We need to be looking at what needed to happen within the system itself, right, to run the business more effectively. And when you go into our offices or this virtual world, here's the thing. I'm a part of Nikki Cannon's office. Lauren, I know you are. Sean, you are too. Is Nikki doing this class? No. Did Nikki do the hosting? Nope. Is Nikki doing all the breakouts, like in the back and doing all the technology? No. Is Christopher? No. Is it? And we can keep going up. So what you're learning when you're coming in, you're learning these steps for yourself. But I want you guys to really be mindful of what's happening around you to say, okay, when I get this up and running for my own organization, I have 100, 150, 200 different licensed agents. What you're learning is how to run this overall system so things can be in place. You have someone who teaches this class, this one hosts, this one does this one does the presentation, this one does that, so that, hey, you're making money whether you're there or not, you know, and you're constantly having that stuff coming in. So our ability, when we say, hey, reselling the dream to existing associates, that's essential, because if you want to keep your business up and running, Sean, I saw what you wrote is, hey, it's easy to get discouraged in this business, because you know what? You're an entrepreneur. You're an entrepreneur. When you're an entrepreneur, when you sign up to be an entrepreneur, you sign up to get beat up a little bit. And it doesn't matter what industry, you know, you're taking some no's, you're doing a bunch of different stuff. And so your ability to say, hey, I'm still going after my goals and dreams no matter what someone says no, someone says, you know, not now, someone says yes, and then they change their mind. You're just getting like pounded. But you know what? As soon as you get that yes, when you get that satisfaction, it feels great. But guess what? When someone can say, hey, this was Lauren's story when she came in, and the things that she overcame and how she did it, people aren't thinking, oh, it's Nikki who's been in business for 20 years. No, it's a person who's been in business a month, who went through a couple things, that finally took that test and got licensed, or that finally got that training appointment. You guys, you won't even know how beneficial it is, not just for you, but for all of your new associates that start coming in. So I want you guys to be mindful of the system and everything around of what's going on, to know, hey, that's how I keep my business going, right? And I keep people encouraged, and not in a superficial way. People know when it's like, we always use that word rah-rah, like, hey, Sean, you spelled your name, woohoo. No, it's like, you know how hard it is to get up, kind of put yourself out there and tell someone your personal goals and dreams of what you want for your life, and to finally be a little bit vulnerable. And then someone's like, I mean, that sounds good for you. And then they don't give you referrals or something like, that's a lot. You're like, you're sharing things that you didn't think you wanted to do. You're stepping outside your comfort zone. You're like, I'm willing to do that. And no one's going to be like, oh, that's stupid. But if they're not really, you know, doing anything to fuel that business, or give you that referral or all this stuff, it can feel discouraging, and it almost feels like a personal attack. And we know that, but it's not. Don't take it personally. And that's what you start to build as an entrepreneur. And this is anywhere. I want to remind you, anywhere. Doesn't matter that industry. So what you see up here, it says Dr. Maltz in 1960 said it takes 21 days to form a new habit. Today, some psychologists are saying it takes 66 days on average. So these are some of the suggestions. Is when you're making important changes in your life, you know, it's not to be undertaken lightly. Don't just be like, oh, I started WFG and we'll see how it goes. Yeah, of course. You get to stick your pinky toe in. That's probably the best part of WFG, is that I don't have to give up everything that I've committed to, my education and everything, to try something new. But you know what? It is a life-changing decision. It just doesn't come at great risk. But that being said, it isn't to be undertaken lightly. You know, once you make this decision to be a part of WFG, and it's not about being a part of WFG, it's about, feel free to mute yourself if you want. You can come on and off mute. But what you're making a decision to commit to is to go after your dream. So commit, don't just agree, right? When you think of commitment, what do we think of? Marriage, right? Dating, not as much of a commitment. That's why those end sometimes. But a marriage is like, you don't just quit right now. Like, let's try and get it. Same thing with your WFG business. Please don't be quick to give up on it or to change your mind. Or trust me, whatever you experience, someone has gone through it, but has overcome it, and you can too. So find a partner to help you through the tough spots. You know, when I felt like I had someone in it with me, like I had my leadership, I had Nikki, I had Sabrina, I had all these people. But at the end of the day, I'm like, y'all been here for a long time. You know, you have been there, done that, of course. But at the end of the day, you actually have something built. I didn't have anything built. When I looked to the left and the right, it was me, you know? So to have someone else who felt like they're in my spot, but we're like, we're not going to give up on each other. No, you know, and they were like, Christine, where you at? We have class. And I was like, oh yeah, me too. Just to have someone in it with me, going through the tough stuff together. And then if we did get through a challenge, to say, okay, Nikki, tell me how to approach this. It changed so much for me. And then the research that you do before starting something important needs to be thorough, right? And don't believe everything you find on the internet. You know, the great part about WFG is the equal opportunity. The bad part about WFG, the equal opportunity, you know? And because what you'll find on the internet, when you start to look at some people's comments that have bad experiences, number one is usually when people have great experiences, we don't tend to write them down. We're just here. We're at the BPM, you know, and we're talking to other people who are in the business about it. We're not necessarily yelping about it or anything like that. But when you have a bad experience, that's usually when we voice our opinion. And the thing is, I don't even think that they're trying to badmouth the business or the company, but it's what I said. You're an entrepreneur. You're putting yourself out there. All your big are like, I'm ready to go after them. And guess what? Probably some of those things really happened to them. Maybe they weren't communicated well with. They didn't realize they had to get their license right away. They didn't know that they needed to, you know, be on appointments with, you know, and like there's a lot of things happening. And what happens is people in their most vulnerable state are just like, I had a bad experience. And when there's a lack of communication, that's the worst thing that can happen. You know, and then it starts to get, you know, planted all over the internet and stuff like that. So, okay, there we go. So, you know, so that's the thing is like stuff is all over the internet, but usually when you're seeing comments about WFG on the internet, those are just personal experiences people have had, some true, some maybe not, but a lot of them are probably true to them and their experience. But when you read into them, it's usually